Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, so I am very happy to introduce today's guest, Patrick Valtin. Hi, Patrick.
Hello, Adi. How are you?
Good. It's so good to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and Patrick is the best-selling author of, let me try that. Don't like that. Okay. And Patrick is the author of the best-selling book, No Fail Hiring, and you have the other book, Patrick, Taking Off the Mask.
Yeah. I have the other book, Taking Off the Mask.
That's right.
Best-selling author, yes.
Yes, and I love your books, Patrick. It's like they are basically my stable information about hiring, about how to conduct interviews, how to look for the right applicants. And, Patrick is an international speaker. He is a businessman. He had, you had your own consulting company, right? And now you are concentrating more on the hiring part, but you are so savvy in business. He's a sales master. He delivers seminars on sales and coaching people on sales. So you are definitely, in terms of being a thought leader in this industry, you definitely are one.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And that's why I'm so excited to have you on this podcast, because we're going to talk about how using systems for HR and for hiring is so important. And we're also going to give our listeners some tips on how they can start right away taking some actions that will help them start systematizing their HR and their hiring. And if they already have systems, to make sure that the systems are correct. So that's what I'd like to talk about today. Sounds good?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, so let's first of all talk about why is it so important to have good systems in hiring?
Well, there's a technical reason and then there's a legal reason. And funny enough, in the small business world, people don't like to hear about the legal reason. But I'm going to start with the number two. Why is it that legally you should have a great system, a great process when it comes to talent acquisition? And the reason is very simple. The EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, will always ask you about your hiring process evidence. So if you don't have a policy that describes your hiring process and you were audited by the EEOC following up a complaint, which can be anonymous from a candidate, and you cannot show a process in writing as part of your employee policy, you'll get into trouble and it will cost you on average $40,000. I could spend another 2 hours just on that subject. But the number one then is completely technical. The most obvious and most damaging mistake that employers make when it comes to selecting people is they tend to be subjective. Subjectivity kills quality when it comes to talent acquisition. Adi, I don't know if you ever heard that, but did you know that on average, it takes a recruiter less than 3 minutes to decide if they want to hire that candidate or not? 3 minutes. And they are not aware of that. It's not even conscious. But too often, emotions are basically taking over very early in the process. So implementing procedures and a system within the talent acquisition procedure is absolutely vital.
I agree. I just on that point, I work with clients on creating the systems, and also from my own experience, I completely agree with you, because I hired a lot, fired, before having my own company, I was an executive in a international consulting company. I work with different companies. I have I had people working for me. I have staff right now. I see how I hire. And it is an inclination to just make a decision, like a rapid decision. I like that person or I don't like that person. Despite how much training we try to train ourselves, we still we have the inclination or the tendency to want to work with people that are exactly like us, right? I mean, that's for me anyway. And then if you see somebody is a little bit different or is not ideal, that's why the subjectivity versus the having the process, so you can actually train yourself to take the subjectivity away, that is so important.
Yes, absolutely. And I will tell you the main reason why it is so important to put the emotions aside when you hire people. Do you know the definition of the word personality?
Tell me.
It's very interesting because people, they are very much impressed by what they see during the interview, right? It's actually the reason why I wrote this bestseller, Taking Off the Mask, because the origin of the word personality is personae, which is an old Latin word, which means mask.
Interesting. Wow.
Right? So most people are not aware that when you interview a candidate on the phone, on Zoom, face-to-face, many of them will tend to put up a mask.
That's right.
They want to put up their best makeup to win that interview. So the biggest challenge is, one, don't get trapped by what you see, because chances are what you see is a mask. Number two, how can you, throughout the procedure, remove the mask so that you know exactly who you are talking to and who you are dealing with? Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. And I know in the book, No Fail Hiring, you refer to it as the interview personality, right? And you don't want to get fooled by the interview personality. I actually use that term a lot when I talk to clients. And I love that. And it's so true because you have, think about like our listeners, if you are, we are not all born entrepreneurs. Lucky for us that did, but some of us, will start our career working, interviewing, so when you went to an interview, you had the questions you already had probably in your head, like role playing. What are you going to say if this question comes up or if that question comes up? Not in terms of trying to fake it or try to deceive necessarily, but we do because you're being asked and then you answer. But using your techniques and what you're writing in the books really allow you as the interviewer to penetrate through that mask, take it off, and really see who is in front of you. And I think, Patrick, it's really because the questions to ask and using the methodology that you describe, there isn't any right or wrong answers, right? Mm-hmm. So the candidate does not feel like there is a right or wrong answers. You get them to answer what they really feel, how they really react to different situations. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I really like is
type of questions.
Is situations type of questions. And what I really like about the questions that you suggest is to always provide proof or evidence, right? So if you ask a question, then the next thing is who can prove it, right? If I'm saying it, saying it correctly.
Right. Yeah, and it's part of the system. It's part of the procedure. I will always tell my clients, there are two key words that you need to remember as a recruiter. Keyword number one is challenge. You want to ask challenging questions. And it's very important to challenge the candidate. Listen, it's totally okay to challenge a candidate. The worst that could happen is the candidate does not like your challenging questions and does not take the job. I tell you what, shouldn't take the job.
That's right.
And there are many examples of challenging questions. One could be, in your previous job, what kind of results did you achieve? It's a challenging question. See? But then there's a second keyword that is vital. And the second keyword is reaction. Because the way they react to your questions will very often tell you more than the actual answer. So challenge and reaction.
So give me some examples. I love the challenge example that you gave. So definitely challenge the applicant, but give me some examples of reactions that we can
look so at. You ask the candidate, hey, on your previous job, you were a salesperson for 5 years in that company. What kind of results did you achieve? And then you look at the immediate reaction of the candidate. How long does it take for them to answer? Are they going to look at you? Are they hesitating in the answer? Some of them will actually tell you, I'm sorry, I did not understand your question. All right. So you really look at the reaction. Some of them will answer, and then you dig further, you challenge more if you are not happy with the answer.
Right.
Okay. And another then challenging question to follow up on that question would be, who could confirm what you just told me?
Right.
You see? So I have had very interesting reactions from candidates by challenging them with the two questions I just gave you.
Absolutely. And I also noticed that sometimes you ask the challenging question, but instead of just looking at you and staring at you like, why are you asking me that question? They also start giving you one of the the answer unrelated to the question, or something that that just like, it just basically words, but it's not really answering your question, right?
Answering the question, exactly. Yeah.
So that can be also something to look for, because you're asking for results. So let's say, I'm interviewing you and I say, Patrick, in your previous job, I see you work as a salesperson. What kind of results did you get? I would expect you would say, well, I sold this many packages for this much money. I created, I made my bonuses every single time. I expanded the company by 400%, whatever it is, right?
Which are ideal answers to which you never want to forget to ask the next challenging question: who could verify or confirm that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I was just thinking, okay, so let's say we are recruiting, we are hiring somebody that has a present job. It happened to me, right? I'm hiring somebody who had a present job, and I asked that question, and he says, well, it's my current boss, but don't call them because they don't know I'm leaving, right? Which is a scenario. What do we do?
It's a real scenario, and it's correct. It's very simple. You basically tell them, listen, at some point I will need to find out, because it's part of our procedure. It's not just with you. We do this with every applicant. So by the time we want to discuss further, two things should happen. One, your boss should know that you're looking for another job at some point. Two, I will need to be able to do a reference check, which is part of our routine procedure. And when you say that, look at the candidate's reaction again.
Yeah.
See, how long are they going to stay on a job hiding from the boss that they are secretly looking for another job, right? That doesn't make too much sense. At some point, they have to be willing to face their current employer that they are looking for another job. And I challenge them on that. How long have you been looking secretly for a job? It's a challenging question. When are you planning to actually be transparent and clear with your boss that you are planning to leave them? You see?
Absolutely, because we know very well that you're going to be, as a boss, the next in line, because there will be something they're not happy about, something that they're secretly looking. And if you want them to be open with you when they look for the next job, you need to definitely challenge them during the interview, because that is the time to do that.
Absolutely. Listen, there's one thing that every employer must be looking for, no matter what the position to fill is. The most important soft skill that you need to evaluate before any other soft skill is honesty. It's the most important soft skill. If you don't have certainty on that, you will be in trouble. It is in the book here. I don't know if you had a chance to read this again.
Absolutely.
But just, for your public who is listening or is watching this, did you know that 33% of all bankruptcies in America are due to employee theft? That's 1 out of 3 bankruptcies. Per the FBI, employee theft is the fastest growing crime in America. It's growing faster than cybercrime. So, especially if you are a small business owner, you need to understand that no matter how competent people are, if they are not honest, what will happen is what Warren Buffett, he has a joke. You know what he used to say?
What?
When you hire people, you are looking for 3 qualities in the right order, in the right sequence. Number 1, they have to be honest. Number 2, they have to be willing to work hard. They have to be hard workers. And number 3, they have to be smart. And then he says, if you hire people who have the only 2 criteria, qualities, but they don't have the first one, they will use those 2 qualities to screw you.
Absolutely. I can totally see that. That is so
honesty,
true.
Hardworking, and being smart in the right sequence.
So Patrick, the question is, probably people are listening to us right now. Well, yeah, we all know about, the knife in the back that we got from employees in the past, that, we got the trust, we trusted somebody, we thought they were super honest and we turn out they're not. Or, we are looking at somebody and we are not sure, just like the mask, right? Taking off the mask. Are they honest? Are they not honest? They seem like they're saying, I checked references. Also people got to a point where they had their gut feeling like, no, this is not, that person is not, but they violated so many times. Now they can't trust themselves. So me as an employer, how would I know that the person I am in front of me that I'm interviewing is actually honest? What do you suggest I can do to find out?
There is a multiple step procedure that employers should implement, right? And evaluating honesty starts with reading the resume. There's always one red flag on the resume that I look for. This is what I call date gaps. If you see date gaps, the person says, from 2002 to 2007, I was working with that company. From 2010 to 2013, I was working for that company. Okay, what did he or she do between 2007 and 2010? Date gaps, red flag.
Right.
You need to definitely ask them the question, what did you do during that time? The other technique that I use, which should be part of your system, always compare a resume to a standard job application. You should have a standard job application to be filled, and it should be the same by all your candidates. When you compare the 2 documents, sometimes you will see obvious discrepancies. Red flag. Okay?
Absolutely.
Then the next step of evaluation on that vital soft skill is definitely the interview process. You have to be ready to ask challenging questions which will dictate the person, which will lead the person to give you an answer. And by challenging them, checking their reference and challenging them again, you will see lack of honesty popping up within a few minutes. The next step is I always recommend testing. I know that a lot of employers are a little bit uncomfortable to use pre-hire assessments, but you need to use good pre-hire assessments that will help you detect things, weaknesses that are very hard to detect during a 1, 2, 3, or 4 hours interview.
Absolutely. And that's the next topic I'd like to address, because you created amazing pre-hire. So you have a Preselector, a pre-hire test, and the skill assessment test. And you also have a test that you can do on existing employees. And that is part of the HireBox. So it's Hire, HIRE, box, BOX, so hirebox.com. And people can go there and take a look at the different tests. So we're going to talk about those tests and how they differ from others on the market. But also, let's start first of all with why do you think employers are leery of using tests? Why there will be that hesitancy?
Many reasons. Reason number one is a lot of employers, they basically get advised by the legal counselor not to use testing, supposedly because using testing could lead you to trouble. To that, I want to tell you something. Statistically, less than 4% of EEOC cases, court cases against employers were related to testing. Less than 4%. And it's not because they were using a specific test that they were having legal trouble. It's the way they were using the results, which could lead to discrimination.
Right.
That's the main reason. The key word here is you don't want to discriminate. And some tools could lead to discriminatory interpretation. That's where the danger is. It's not so much in the test. It is in the way you use the test results to make a hiring decision, which could be discriminatory.
So that's why you also have to have a policy on how you use the tests.
Absolutely.
And that way you can always have if you abide by that policy, then you don't discriminate. Because look, we don't want to discriminate against employees.
No, you don't.
No, everyone has to have a fair chance, because we want to hire by competency. We want to hire by people that really adjust or are good with our culture, people that can do the job, because that's what we want, right? So we want to keep it open to as many candidates as possible and really evaluate according to objective criteria. So it's not like we're here, we don't want to discriminate. So if you have that policy, I'm just saying it's because I heard, I think about different clients say, oh, now I'm supposed to have this policy. I mean, honestly, it's good to have that policy because it's black and white. And we talk about honesty. Honesty has to come from the employers as well. So you are honest about what you are looking for. You are honest about how you treat people. And then there is no harm because you are open about it, right?
If you use pre-hire assessments not to judge candidates, but to understand better what they are offering, then it's just it's a matching process.
Absolutely.
You want to have good pre-hire assessments. And of course, mine are the best, but that's another story. But you use the results to understand better, does that candidate offer the soft skills that we need on that position to be successful? That's all.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it will challenge what you have observed. Sometimes it will confirm what you have observed. But what is very important, Addie, is that part of your recruitment procedure policy, you should include in that policy why you are using pre-hire assessments to detect specific types of soft skills. I want to give you a very shocking statistic. 89% of failures in talent acquisition are due to a lack of the proper soft skill for the specific position. Only 11% of the failures are due to lack of hard skills, technical skills. 89% of them are due to weaknesses such as inability to work in a team, unwillingness to contribute to the group, lack of persistence, lack of good communication skills, lack of passion for what you are doing, lack of understanding about other people, lack of character, which leads you to not be able to work with others. All of those are soft skills. and they contribute to 89% of the failures in the talent acquisition process.
I can totally see that. It goes back to culture. You have a certain culture in an organization, and if that person does not have the soft skills, like your future employee or the person you're interviewing, they don't have the soft skills that are needed in order to actually be able to do that position within your culture, within your core values, within your mission, between how you operate, it won't work. Because that might be that particular soft skills that they have is would work in a different environment that is abrasive, that is, maybe forceful. But if they bring that to an environment that is more friendly, happy, collaborative, as opposed maybe somebody is more competitive going into a more collaborative environment, it's a clash of the personalities involved. It doesn't mean that one of them is bad or good. No. That's where we don't get into judgment, as you said. No. You have to evaluate whether the soft skills that they possess match what you're looking for.
You are right. And part of the process that is most of the time neglected with small businesses, when you write, first of all, you should write your job description for the position you are trying to fill. Write the job description before starting the campaign, okay? But one thing that is very much neglected is you need to make a list of those soft skills, personality-related characteristics that are extremely important in order for the person who's going to take the job is going to be successful on that job. In other words, what are the job-related soft skills that we have to be able to evaluate when we interview the candidate?
Absolutely. Because, like the usual job descriptions that we see are more functions. It's like what the person is supposed to do or what the person is supposed to produce.
They're functional, yes.
They're functional. But we also need to add to it the soft skills, because that's the personality. So then you make the job description complete, because in order to have those functions done, you also have to possess those soft skills. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So true. That's very true. So
it's important to also understand that a lot of employers, they don't like too much to look at soft skills because, again, they don't get the correct advice from the legal counselor.
Yep.
If you want to avoid legal trouble with the EEOC when you evaluate soft skill, it's very simple. Job description that includes those soft skills, and you simply need to explain why such specific soft skill is important for that specific position. If you do that, you are legally covered. I give you an example.
Yeah.
IKEA a few years ago in Atlanta, Georgia, was, IKEA, right?
Of course.
Okay. The company was sued by an employee after they terminated that employee for not smiling on the job. And that employee was working in the store, supposedly welcoming clients, customers in the store. Well, make a long story short, the employee lost the court case. IKEA won the court case for one reason. They had planned and they had formally explained in the job description why smiling was important. They actually were able to demonstrate that if you don't smile on the job, how many customers they will potentially lose that day.
Right.
So it is not true that focusing on soft skills could lead you into trouble. It is not true at all. You just need to know how to include soft skills in the hiring process and in the whole evaluation process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is, again, it's all about the open communication and defining and not put off working on your business in terms of developing. Again, we're going back to culture in terms of developing what do you want for each position, because that is so important. Because if smiling is part of your basic policies, if smiling is part of your core value, or being happy or being friendly, and not just, that's why, by the way, I am not a fan of just throwing just your core values. Okay, it's honesty, integrity, is this, and this, but actually telling a story behind it and explaining, because then you have the explanation of why honesty is important to your company, right? Why integrity is important, why friendliness is important, not just because you want people to be friendly, but how does it affect your customers? How does it affect what you do? And that way it integrates. So I love that example. So let's talk now about the testing, because you have very specific tests, which I recommend a lot and I use a lot. And I think they are very, very accurate, and I'm very familiar with a lot of tests on the market. And it's not to say that they are not valid or we have to throw them away, but there is something lacking that when I found your test, I go like, okay, this is very, very specific, because it gives you an assessment of soft skills, right? And because also you give, when somebody takes the test, and you can again find it on HireBox.com, what I find is when you look at the evaluation, you are giving there, or the test gives you the challenging questions that you can ask, like how you can challenge the applicant if they actually score in a certain way. And that for me, it is so valuable, because it helps me tremendously when I'm interviewing somebody to ask those questions. Absolutely. And know what to ask. And I look at it really like an X-ray. That's the way I look at it, but you have to still evaluate it. I will never hire just based on test scores alone, because everything goes together. And I learned that also, you talk about it in your book, and that's obviously, the test it's just an indicator. It's an additional indicator. If you already have some things you are not sure about the candidate, the test will either confirm it or will tell you to go dig deeper so you can actually find the answer, right?
100%, yes.
So I want to start talking about the different type of tests that you have. The first one is the happiness index, which is basically like it takes 5 minutes to do it, or even less. I mean, it's very fast, done online, and it gives you a happiness index. So that's the Preselector. So I like to use it before I even interview somebody, because I want to see, exactly, it's the Preselector, right? And you can see how much that person is going to contribute to the happiness of your company. So let's talk about that, because this is a unique concept, and I know it's based on research, and you give even Google, they definitely had that research that you quote in your book about the happiness of the employees and how it contributes to the environment. But you don't go out there and hear, oh, what's the happiness index in my company, right? So let's talk about that concept.
So yes, so the Preselector evaluates. It's a 5-minute test that you should use on candidates who reach by sending their resume. Ideally, they spend 5 minutes as part of the application process, because it will provide you with information that you can use later during a phone interview or a face-to-face interview. Now, interestingly enough, candidates can cheat. It's very easy to cheat, and most of them do. What they don't know is that you're going to use the answers to challenge them, which will allow you within just a few minutes to realize she was cheating, she was lying, or he was lying or not. So we deliver a happiness contribution index, because I did a lot of research and I found out that if people are legitimately, genuinely strong on those 6 traits that we analyze in the Preselector, they will make you happy as an employer. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And those 6 traits are in your book,
yes.
Taking off the mask.
Yes.
And can we name them so we can go over it, like just so our listeners probably curious, so maybe 1 or 2?
Yeah, I mean, one of them is how much do they look into the future? Are they purpose-driven? So the purpose drive evaluates the candidate in terms of looking for a career or looking just for a job and a paycheck at the end of the month. That's a very important, we call this the purpose drive. And there are only 6 of them. Another one is basically the performance drive. Is the candidate naturally result-oriented or not? It's very important. Another drive is very important today. I call it the exchange drive. We evaluate how much the candidate understands and agrees with the concept that if you want to make money, you have to work. That drive evaluates how much a candidate feels that and agrees with the idea that I want to make good money, so I will need to work. Or I just deserve your money, even if I don't work so hard. So it's a very interesting trait, because when you start challenging candidate on the result of that trait, I promise you within less than 2 minutes, you can make yourself a great idea of that candidate's profile and that level of honesty in answering the questions. So
Absolutely.
another drive is service drive, team drive. Anyway, very simple to understand. But
it's very simple to understand. And you also provide, so the results that you provide are a result for the company. So that's where you will find you as the interviewer, the employer, you will find the questions that you can ask.
Yes.
And it also reminds you who can prove that. So you're not going to forget if you actually follow the script, and it's done it's great. It's color coded. You can see it. It's very easy to see. And then there is a copy that you can provide to the applicant, because we all took personality tests, and you're so curious to see how did I do on the test.
Yes.
So there is a copy specifically for the applicant without the questions, that challenging questions, the follow-up questions, but it gives them the explanation. So I think it's a great test. So that's the happiness index. Then that's the Preselector. And I've seen clients use it, like they even put it on the Indeed, like when you respond back, they have it as part of their template, and it goes back and says, thank you for applying, and please this is part of our process, please fill it out. And then you immediately, you can see that you can have a better understanding of, you see the resume, you see the test, and then you have a better idea to judge and to figure out and to evaluate, not to judge critically, but to evaluate. Patrick,
and also ask the correct question during an interview.
And ask the correct questions, absolutely. Then I want to talk about the rest of the test, but I just remembered a question when you're talking about resumes. What's your take when you see a resume that somebody basically went from one job to another, like didn't stay more than 6 months in a job? What do you do with that?
It's a job hopper personality, which we measure with a purpose drive. And when the purpose drive is low, you know that you are dealing with job hoppers who are basically looking for a paycheck. But the problem behind that attitude is lack of loyalty and sometimes lack of honesty, because they'll do anything they can to just find another job that pays another $1 or $2 per hour, more than what you did. So Absolutely. It's a very strong indicator of lack of loyalty and potential problems of honesty.
Yeah, but I think it's also the purpose, because I'm thinking about back on an employee I had, and she had a completely different purpose. She wanted to be an artist, and that was really her purpose. And trying to do a consulting admin job was not what she wanted to do. So, she was trying because she had to make money to survive, right? All those things I found later. I didn't use the test at the time. But it's very true that sometimes that can happen. So that's why on the happiness index, the lack of purpose can indicate that. And I think also the exchange, because if they feel entitled, or they are just looking for the next job where you're going to get the next a $1 an hour raise, then it's a problem, because they're not exchanging their services and the loyalty. So it's a very good point of combining the resume with, that's again another example of combining the resume with the Preselector. So then you can ask the right questions as opposed to assume things and have that conversation. Because
the Preselector will tell you if someone has too much attention on, being helped, thinking that they are entitled to make money without having to work. So it's a great tool for detecting entitlement in candidates. Absolutely.
Great. So then tell us, no, it's a great information. So let's talk about the other, because we're kind of like running out of time, but just mentioning the other types of tests. And then I want to ask you why those tests are better than others. So let's just name the other ones. So we have the Preselector, we have
the recruitment test.
Right, the recruit test, which I use a lot. This is basically once you already more towards the end of your recruitment process, you interviewed and then you want to have more of an understanding. Yeah. And it shows how many soft skills does it show?
20
soft skills.
Well, this is the most important assessment that we offer. It's a full soft skill assessment. We analyze 20 different soft skills, and we also analyze a combination of about 250 personality characteristics. The purpose is not to make a decision on whether or not a person is good or bad. The person is to understand better if whatever the candidate is offering in terms of soft skills is really fitting with what you need. I like to call the recruit tech test, that's the name of the test. I like to call it an insurance policy.
Interesting.
Because it's very precise. It's over 90% of precision. And it will really show you what you could not see during an interview. So nobody likes to pay for insurance, but everybody feels like they have to. The recruit tech test will definitely sometimes avoid a very bad hire. We have many times have had the feedback from our clients that they had hired someone against our recommendation based on the test results, and it did cost them a lot of money. One client, it cost him $1 million within 6 months. Another client, not too long ago, had to declare bankruptcy. So it is an insurance policy, seriously. And it is also an amazing tool to help you manage the candidates who you decide to hire, because it will give you a much deeper understanding of that person and how you should manage that person, because not two people can be managed the same way.
No,
by understanding better that individual, you will actually be a better manager, a better senior to that person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to give the example that you actually, I hired somebody and you and I talked because we evaluated the test, and they had great, we can talk later about, you're going to mention next one is the skill assessment. So the skill assessment, they did fantastic. They did great. They did really, I think they did, I don't remember exactly if it's really good or okay on the happiness contribution, but it was definitely high enough of a score that then I confirmed it during the interview that they're going to be a good fit, because I used the questions, I challenged, I got for them to, I asked who can prove that, and they told me, and I checked references. And then you work with me on the actual recruit text, the test itself, and it came out fine, but there were some points that were low, but it wasn't because there were so many good things about the applicants and we considered they can match the culture and work well. But you told me, just be aware that this person will react this and like that to that situation, or, they are in this and this. If things get stressful, the communication will go here, or something to that effect, which going in, knowing it, I was able to change my management style to make sure that when I'm communicating to that person, I'm very clear in writing, I'm patient, I know what to expect, and then I'm getting the best results, right? Mm-hmm. But if I knew, like, let's say, knowing going into hiring that person that this is how they're going to be managed. But if I'm not able to use that management style, or if let's say it's a super fast paced, like let's say they are going to go into sales, where I'm not going to stop, if let's say I was a sales manager, you can't stop. It's like go, go, go. Then that person would not be the right fit for that position. So I definitely experienced that. So it can be used to definitely protect yourself and not hire, not make the decisions you don't want to make. But it can be used in order to really understand the person better and manage correctly. So I completely agree with that. So we had 2 tests already. So now the third one is would that be the problem solving?
Yeah, this is more of a technical assessment. It's called the problem solving skills analysis, which I always recommend that assessment for executive positions, engineer, programmers, people who basically have to solve problems, because that's the name of the assessment, right?
Right.
Problem solving skills, and mostly recommended for executive position or any technical position that requires the ability to think solutions.
Absolutely. And so, okay, so those are the 3 tests. So now tell us in closing why the tests are different than any other test on the market.
There's many differences, but the biggest difference is, you remember I gave you the definition of the word personality.
Yes, mask, persona.
And I showed you clearly that the biggest mistake is to basically think that who you see will be, right? And they end up very often being very different. Well, the HireBox assessments are the only one on the market to remove the mask. We go through the mask and we are able to evaluate who is behind the mask. That's the biggest difference.
Absolutely.
A lot of assessment on the market, they are not even conscious. They are not aware of that personality mask issue. So you evaluate mask, but you don't know that it is the mask.
That's right.
So we go through the mask.
That's great. And I agree with that. Absolutely. It's like it's removing the mask, showing you. And so for our listeners or our viewers, if they want to try a test, where should they go?
They go to HireBox.com. We provide them a couple of weeks free trial. They just need to ask for a demo. We'll subscribe them for 2 weeks for free. And during those 2 weeks, we get in touch to help them use the system, but it's very user-friendly.
Absolutely. And they can also contact me and I can direct them, if you're already on the podcast. Absolutely. And and also they can look up in Amazon, they can go to Amazon and they can look, you just type Patrick Valtin and you'll see the 2 books. And I highly recommend, this is, if you want a procedure, if you want your procedures and basically the process and the procedures on how to hire, if you're wondering, how am I going to take all this information? What am I going to do with it? It's in the books. The books actually walk you, it's like a manual on how to hire. So if you actually understand each chapter, it tells you how to create a job description. It tells you what to do before the interview. It walks you through the steps, like Patrick was mentioning, in terms of review the resume, but also do the job application. It tells you how to evaluate a resume. So there is a checklist you can take out of that. There is so much in those books that will create your hiring procedure 100%. So Patrick, thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast. It was so informative. It was very informative. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. And good luck to your clients. But yes, if they read the book, it's a guide more than a book. Actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
Okay. Ciao.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.